Welcome to the Businesstalk podcast. I'm your host Deepak from India. We are honored to welcome Dr. Peter Feder, the Francis and Pei-Yuan Chia Professor of Marketing at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, as our distinguished guest on today's episode. Dr. Peter's research focuses on analyzing behavioral data to predict customer purchasing patterns with applications in CRM, customer lifetime value, and sales forecasting. He collaborates with firms across diverse industries, uncovering consistent and often surprising patterns in consumer behavior. Alongside his responsibilities at Wharton, Professor Feder co-founded Zodiac in 2015, a predictive analytics firm acquired by Nike 3 years later. He subsequently launched Theta Equity Partners, where he continues to drive innovations in customer-based corporate valuation. Professor Feder is the author of Customer Centricity, Focus on the Right Customers for Strategic Advantage, and co-author with Sarah E. Thoms of the Customer Centricity Playbook. His insights have been featured in prominent media outlets, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, the Washington Post, and NPR. In 2017, he was recognized by Advertising Age as one of its inaugural 25 marketing technology trailblazers and was the sole academic on the list. Today, Dr. Peter Feder shares insights from his acclaimed book, Customer Centricity, Focus on the Right Customers for Strategic Advantage. It's my pleasure to now welcome Dr. Peter Feder to the conversation. Dr. Peter,
It's great to chat with you. Sure.
yeah. Dr. Peter, we are truly honored that you have accepted our invitation and delighted to have you with us today.
Yes, indeed. I love talking about this stuff. Love to spread the gospel all around the world and welcome new ideas, new questions, new applications for some of these ways of thinking.
Thank you. Dr. Peter, your book challenges the traditional edge that the customer is always right. How did you arrive at the insight that companies should focus on the right customers rather than all customers?
I'm a data guy. That's it. I look at what the data and the insights that I glean from it tell me about what's working, what's not, what makes sense, what should we leave alone. And it turns out that a lot of the frameworks, the notions that we have about how marketing or business as a whole should operate are not always quite right, or at the very least, they're not as state of the art as they can be. And we just have so much more that we know today because of the kinds of data that's available, the kinds of analytical capabilities that we have, just very innovative businesses. But we need to start thinking about things differently. The 1950s style marketing doesn't apply anymore. And understanding that not all customers are created equal is not only a fact, but an important point that we should be leveraging for ongoing sustainable success.
Professor, can you explain the concept of distinguish good customers from everyone else and how businesses can practically identify these segments?
I am so glad you're asking because a lot of people get the wrong idea because a lot of companies do this in the wrong way, that they just know who the best customers are. And of course, I'm saying that a little sarcastically, little air quotes around know. They just have a feeling, or there's a certain kinds of customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, that they're more comfortable with, that just say nicer things about them. But when you look at the data, very often you get a different view, that there are some customers out there who they might not be exciting, they might not be the kinds of customers you thought you'd be most appealing to, but they're going to stay with you a longer time, they're going to buy more often, they're going to spend more when they do. And that's the whole idea of customer lifetime value. So to answer your question, we want to define who those best customers are and build our business using tools like customer lifetime value to really address this in just a very objective, comparable, rigorous manner.
Dr. Peter, Starbucks and Nordstrom are highlighted in your book as companies that successfully pivoted to a customer-centric model. What are the key lessons other businesses can learn from their approach?
Actually, in both examples, those are companies that really weren't born into it. It's a really important point that both of them used to treat everybody as their best friend. So Nordstrom would give just the kind of white glove, red carpet, gold medal treatment to anyone. And Starbucks wanted to be seen as, the third place for everyone. And they both learned the hard way that they can't be everybody's best friend. There are a number of customers who are just not going to reciprocate the love, and other customers who, if you show them just a little bit more love, that the ROI on those efforts is going to be very, very high. So both of those companies over the years have woken up. And I don't want to say it's been revolutionary, it's been more gradual to this idea that not all customers are created equal, and that they themselves have an obligation to understand those differences and find the best ways to leverage them. So whether it is a department store, high-end department store, or a coffee chain, or whether it's an airline or a B2B business services company or a payments processor, hotel chain, these lessons are universal. They cut across sectors, they cut across geographies and different kinds of business models. CLV, that's what it's all about.
Professor, how can executives effectively use customer lifetime value to make smarter strategic decisions, especially in industries where data is fragmented or inconsistent?
Deepak, it's such a good question. And I have to admit, over the years, I haven't done such a great job of addressing it because it used to be that, again, I'm a math guy. So it used to be, here's the model. Okay, go use it, go make money. But it's actually much harder than that. It's really important not only to focus on how well a model can forecast and what kind of technical optimization we can do with it, but to start thinking a lot about organizational design, about corporate culture, about developing the right kinds of narratives to win over different people within the business who naturally would have nothing to do with lifetime value. So in this dimension, I'm still a student. I'm still learning. I'm still looking at companies and thought leaders around the world and saying, that's a good idea. And then borrowing some of those ideas, collecting them together, and then putting them out there. In fact, I'm working right now on book number 4, be out probably about a year from now, called Creating a Customer-Centric Corporate Culture. Now, if you had asked me even 5 years ago, what's the chances that I would ever write a book like that? I'd laugh at you because I'm just a math guy. But I've really come to have just great respect for both the importance of developing these kinds of cultural, organizational strengths, the challenges of getting the models to fit in, and like I said, the skill of persuading people around the company. How do we get the R&D people on board? How do we get the finance people on board? How do we get the supply chain people on board? It's going to be different narratives for each one. It's not just going to be, here's the model, go use it. So I'm always learning and improving, and still very much doing that to this day. And the answer to the question is, well, it depends on the nature of the company. In settings like you just described, if there's very fragmented data, it makes it a lot harder. Other cultures are more data driven, whereas I can kind of slide right in. But with companies that are either the data's not great or they just don't have a tradition about using it, it takes a bit more work. But I love that kind of challenge.
Professor, you argue that CRM has lost its way. How should companies rethink their CRM strategies to truly focus on the most valuable customers?
Yeah, CRM lost its way decades ago. Basically, once CRM was more or less invented, let's call it, 1980s, you'd have these companies come around, and it wasn't really their fault, but clients weren't quite ready for it yet. So, companies like, SAP and Salesforce and Oracle, they'd come in with these very powerful tools, but companies didn't really know what to do with them. So here's a whole lot of money. Please build this system for us, thinking that the dollars would come raining down from the sky. Goes back to it's not just about models. But the companies didn't have the right organizational structure to know what questions to ask out of the CRM system. They didn't have the capabilities to fully answer those questions. There was very little accountability to measure the success of these data-oriented initiatives. So the problem is a lot of the CRM work was just way, way, way too early. And in many cases, it did more harm than good because companies would spend all of this money and get nothing for it. Again, it's not a knock against the CRM. It's about the corporate readiness for it. And then they would give up on it. They say, well, we tried that, didn't work. Next. And so that this is kind of timeless. It's the same exact issues that are happening with AI today. Same kind of thing. People rushing into it, spending a whole lot of money on it, but not really knowing exactly what they're going to do with it. So I think a lot of this is human nature, that we just rush into things because others are doing so, but we don't do it in a thoughtful way. Again, we don't experiment, we don't gauge our success and adjust as we go on. And I think CRM was just a terrible example of seeing all these bad factors in action.
Many companies have access to massive amount of customer data, but struggle to extract actionable insights. What common pitfalls do you see, and how can they be avoided?
Yeah, you're going to notice a consistent theme over here, is that they're trying to take a lot of the data, just like they're doing with the AI, and kind of fit it into business as usual. So how can it help us do what we've been doing before a little bit better? And by better, very often that means more efficiently. Let's just bring the cost down. Sometimes it also means effectiveness. Personally, I'm more of an effectiveness kind of guy. I'm willing to trade off efficiency for effectiveness, as I hope any company would. And I'm happy to talk more about that. But the main point is they're just trying to use the data, the technology, the AI, just to do what they're doing a little bit better, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, if we're going to really take advantage of this, we need to change what we're doing. We need to change it drastically. And again, it's not just how we do these particular tactical activities, it's how we organize ourselves. It's how we talk about ourselves. It's how we reward our executives. It's the narrative that we put out there for our external stakeholders and investors. You really need big changes that a lot of companies just either are unwilling to make or just unaware of exactly what they should do.
Professor, in a customer-centric world, how should companies realign their KPIs and performance metrics to ensure they are rewarding actions that are truly drive long-term profitability?
Another point that's been just a source of great frustration for me. The answer is very short and sweet, but hard to do. But just we should be both looking at and sharing more customer metrics about how many customers are we acquiring and how long are they staying and how often are they buying and how much are they spending. A lot of metrics that just don't traditionally show up in an income statement, cash flow statement, balance sheet, 10Q or investor day presentation. When we came up with all of those different kinds of financial documents, we didn't have access to the kinds of customer data that we have today. We didn't understand the tight connections between customer behavior and financial outcomes. There was no one pushing us to go further in this customer direction. Everyone was perfectly happy with the metrics that we have out there. Today, I look at all these different problems, all kinds of shareholder lawsuits about companies either incorrectly disclosing certain metrics or not disclosing certain metrics. They keep me very, very busy, but I wish they didn't exist because there really should be standards about what kinds of metrics you should be sharing and how you would define them and what narrative and caveats should you surround them with. There should just be much more awareness of these different kinds of customer activities that are today right at our fingertips. But most companies, if they're looking at them at all, they're looking at them purely internally and rarely sharing them with the outside stakeholders. That needs to change. And we've been doing a lot of work recently, a lot of it kind of frustrating to try to get companies to think about what are the right metrics to be looking at, and in some cases, sharing them externally to send those signals to the ecosystem about what they're good at, what this company's good at. It's a long run game. We're getting there slowly but surely, and I really do believe that by the time our children are CEOs, they'll be doing a lot of this kind of work and sharing these kinds of metrics routinely, but it takes time.
Dr. Feder, nearly a decade since customer centricity was first published. How has the business landscape changed, and what new opportunities or challenges exist for companies adopting this approach today?
On one hand, not that much has changed. I love to point to examples of companies that have woken up and seen the effects of having proper customer data orientation can have for them. So we've already mentioned Starbucks and Nordstrom, the department store here in the US. And I can point to so many others. For instance, I have some wonderful conversations going on with professional sports teams. And for them, it just used to be all about player performance, Moneyball, and all that sort of thing. But today, it's also how do we run the business more effectively? How do we engage with our fans? What kinds of activities should we be doing with them? Same thing with pharmaceutical companies. I've mentioned a lot about payment processing firms, and right on down the line. It seems like in every industry that there are people waking up to some of these ideas and trying things out. And uh, so, so again, on one hand, the world looks pretty much the way it did when I first wrote that book, which was actually more like 15 years ago now. Um, uh, uh, on the other hand, there are a lot of signs of promise, and again, I think it is a generational change, but things are overall moving in the right direction. I'm again continuing to learn more about how to move things more effectively. This idea of corporate culture and so on, that has to come first. So we're still learning. It's not yet at the point where I can say, here is the playbook, although I literally have a book with that title, as you know. But that playbook is still being refined, it's still being written, it's still being broadened out to be more than just a bunch of marketing plays, but organization-wide things that can go on and should go on.
Professor, I would like to conclude this episode with one last question. For companies starting on the path toward customer centricity, what are the first practical steps you recommend, and what mistakes should they avoid at all costs?
Great. Well, again, the old answer I would have given you is get lifetime value going, collect all that data and start seeing the value of each and every customer. Not saying that anymore. Now, I do want companies to start planting the seeds to allow for the lifetime value models, but you don't want to do it too quickly. So a lot of it is to first have a lot of conversations around the company to get people to recognize that not only are all customers created different, but we as a firm have this imperative obligation to understand and leverage that. So how do we find ways just to talk, just to create the right internal conversations so that people are willing to embrace lifetime value and not just having it shoved down their throat, and have them think about what those best use cases would be and which kinds of other firms we need to partner with in order to do it and execute it most effectively. So very often it's more about the organization than it is the models. And that leads right there to the words of caution. Don't run before you can walk. Don't just think that if I give you the CLV magic wand, that the money will come raining down from the sky tomorrow. And you might even find some initial successes, but they might not scale. You might have even gotten lucky on that first or second initiative. So you need to expect some setbacks and failures along the way. That's okay. But just like the lifetime value models are all about the long run, so should be a customer-centric initiative, and understanding that it takes time to get there, including taking a few steps back in order for us to move forward.
Thank you so much, Professor Peter Feder, for joining us today and sharing your insights on customer centricity from challenging conventional wisdom about the customer is always right to demonstrating how business can focus on the right customer for long-term strategic advantage. Your examples and practical guidance remind us that true customer centricity isn't just a buzzword, it's a mindset, a strategy, and ultimately a path to sustainable growth. We appreciate the time, expertise, and real world perspective you brought to our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I hope that people will listen and take these lessons. And I would be delighted to keep in touch with you or anyone who's listening to this to talk about what next steps could be and other use cases that I haven't even dreamed up yet.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Bye now.